All right, welcome everybody to the Rogue Disciple podcast. This is our first one for January in 2025. What's the day? What is the date? It's the 24th. So we just got Trump in office 4 days ago. Brother Weed and myself are going to discuss some current events and how they relate. And it was actually this is Brother Ween's idea, but yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome, Brother Ween. Good to see you, man.
Hey man, good to see you since the last time, and
Oh yeah,
been
Christmas
enjoying.
time.
Yeah, since Christmas, we had a little Christmas episode, and I think you got a part two that's going to come out, maybe, right? And
Yeah, part two is coming out soon. Probably here the next couple days. If I can get it tomorrow, I will. Today's Friday, so if I can get that tomorrow on Saturday, that's what I'm
yeah,
looking at doing. Like I said before, before we started, man, it's been busy. I must have had like 6 hours of stuff to edit and go through that I collected real rapidly over the. So I've just been putting all the stuff out, and then I did another one. I don't know if you saw my other YouTube channel. There was a guy who he has a YouTube channel, and it's all about cars, right? The import tuners. Remember Frank CRX, man?
yeah.
That's what he
Oh,
does. He takes those old Hondas like that, the mid '80s to 2000s Hondas, and they slam them to the ground and put tires on them and just mod. They're like Fast and Furious with that stuff, man. And
oh,
so
that's
it was really fun talking to that dude. And his community went nuts over the thing. So there's a lot of traction with it, you know. So it's been doing some good stuff. But I've been like doing that. Been editing the other one. I had a friend of mine come on this podcast here, excuse me, just last week. Put that out. So the Christmas episode went out with me and you. Then my buddy Tom went out, and so dude, I've been busy. And in the past 3 days
that's.
down here, we've had snow down here in Wilmington.
Look,
So
I got what 4 inches of snow in at the beach, maybe more.
yeah, it wasn't four. It was like 2 or 3. You
Uh,
know, mostly 3, but 2 in some areas. I didn't see 4 inches of snow,
okay,
man.
the people I was talking to on the phone were embellishing then, because I was talking to people at work that actually live in Wilmington area, and they're
Now they
like
might have got it,
four
depending on where
inches.
they're at. They might have got it. You know,
Okay,
in my neighborhood, no, we didn't. We got 3. I mean, we got every bit of 3, but I don't know. I don't think it was 4. I mean,
yeah.
well, I still got snow. I still got snow out in the driveway. It was 40 something degrees today. Not in the driveway, but in the yard. So the driveway, all the stuff melted. And the roads are good now. But like Tuesday until the evening. But it came down Tuesday evening. Wednesday was I didn't even leave the house. Thursday was still a mess, and then today, it heated up, and so it's cool now. But 3 days out of school for the kids. Now, luckily, I was homeschooling for so long that it doesn't really bother me. But let's get into it, man. Now, you had a great idea. You want to talk about some of the stuff going on and how it relates to biblical teachings or the Bible in general. And I thought it was a great idea. Oh yeah, you called it the episode of
Fires, flood, and the fallout. So sort of not I didn't plan this at all, but like sort of like the
yeah.
whole vibe here where I'm at. I feel like I'm in the basement doing some conspiracy theory, and that's definitely not what I want to do. But what happens though when you have a lot of huge events like that's been going on, the disasters that we've been seeing in California with fires, and then in North Carolina with the floods, and now a new president's come into play, and the inaugurations happen, executive orders, and some pretty interesting ones. So we'll talk about those. But yeah, once you get all stuff in a mix, sometimes it creates a perfect storm for things like conspiracy theory or just people throwing out trash talk, those kinds of things. So I thought it would be a good topic since there's so much big stuff going on. And I really feel like we may be, I hope not, I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like we may be on the cusp of another 2020 when it comes to all the way things really got divided in social media and among the country, because we've got Trump doing some pretty again, we'll talk about the executive orders, but I've seen a lot of people post about those, and so on and so on. So yeah, I just thought it'd be good to kind of talk through some of that, add some biblical counsel, some going back to the scripture, because like I told my people here in North Carolina on the sort of the Piedmont area where I live, when I was talking to them about being on that episode with you, I said it was just such a fun time because it was just two guys with two Bibles talking about things. And so I think that's a good mixture. I mean, we got to take it back to scripture. You do that, and that's something that I like to do. So I thought it was good for us to kind of do that with some of the hot topics, if you will.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I want to. The first thing on my mind is the fires because,
Yeah.
I mean, you can say conspiracy theory all you want to, but at some point, I mean, they had water, they let it go, they slashed their fire budget by $20 million, and then the mayor herself was out of the country while her city's burning down. I mean, I'm not calling that a conspiracy theory. I'm saying that's not a theory. Those are facts, So it comes a point where you're just like, I don't know. Seems like some of this is on purpose, call me crazy, but if you had water, you had reservoirs that could hold like 100, I think it was 117 million gallons or something like that. Something like that. I mean, don't come at me in the comments that you know what I'm talking about. But it was a lot. It was enough to have water pressure in the fire hydrants that they could have done that with. Brush clearing. They hadn't done any brush clearing in forever. I mean, dude, I've been to California like 3 times in the past 8 years. And every time I go, people out there are saying, dude, they haven't cleared brush out here in forever, And it's like, you got to think you live in a place where there's wildfires. And it just seems like that's a no-brainer kind of thing to do. So if we're taking this scripturally, right, God gave us, he was like, you are supposed to have dominion over the things of the earth, right? Meaning that you're supposed to be a good steward of your resources and of the earth itself, right? I mean, the fall of man, the fall of Adam and Eve is like, okay, guess what? Now it's going to be hard work. You're going to have to till the soil. It's going to be thorny, this, that, whatever. But yeah, it's like you got to do the work. And part of that work is having those things around to have those stopgap measures. Whoever was in charge, they did not do that. I mean, you can't, like, they didn't do it because otherwise the city wouldn't be on fire, or they'd have water, something like this. And, take it away, man. I'm just at a loss for words, dude. With that whole thing, I'm at a loss for words.
That's a tough one. I mean, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it's amazing though. If you look up online, I encourage people to go online and just look at some of the stats with the amount of acreage that's burned so far. But better yet, I mean, and and I know this is January, so we're really early into the year. So I would think maybe after a year we'll see, of course, higher numbers. Because if you look back in 2024, there was millions and millions. I forget the exact number, millions and millions of acreage affected by fires last year in California. So it's definitely a normal thing. And we're in the hundreds of thousands of acres right now. And again, we're just in January. So I'm not sure how that measures up.
Right? I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but while you were talking, I just Googled it. I said, burned acreage in California so far. And so NOAA, National Environment Satellite Data Information Service, right? This is on their website. As of January 21st, 2025, California is battling 4 active wildfires with a total of approximately 37,794 acres burned across the state. So you have the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, the Lilac and Paula fires, right? And that's just off of one Google search, right?
Right.
I mean, that's just me sitting here just typing into Google right now.
And fires? Was that all?
No, well, it's just, I'm sure there may be other ones, man. But those are the 4 that are the biggest because you got Palisades got 23,000 plus acres. The Eaton fires 14,000 plus acres. Lilac and Paula have it says 30 acres each right here. And this was, I don't know how to, this information, or the information on the video was current as of January 17th. So they have a video that's on YouTube that is a satellite imagery, and you can see the smoke from the different areas. Uh, and that's from January 17th. So what's that? So that was only what? It's just, 7 days ago,
What we got?
right?
7 more days later. 7 days later.
Something like that. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, but that's, so it's not like we're, the thing that I don't get, man, is like, I mean, for the longest time, I mean, here in America, politicians lie. They just lie. That's part and parcel of the thing. But you can't do it anymore, right? You just can't do it like that anymore. Like, the internet exists. Everything is a Google search away. Everything is. You can go and find receipts. You can go and find a proof. So for people to sit there and say stuff in today's modern era where everything is instantaneous, it goes global instantaneously. We can find it. We can find it. We can find you. Say, I know you said that. Why? Because I can just go look it up. Now, granted, not everything is fake news, so you have to kind of understand the sources too, right? Because now we live in that era. Because, dude, have you seen, somebody did a deep fake of Trump or something, or somebody, it was Trump or Biden or somebody saying something that they never said, but it was such a good deep fake, and I forget who it was, the left or right, or somebody ran with it, and it was like, and then that person had to come out and go, that wasn't me, I never said that. And I think it was Trump, and he was saying some kind of weird stuff that he never said, It was like, I didn't say that. I don't know. But again, like, at what point are the news anchors just going to not be necessary because AI talking heads will be, you don't have to pay them. Like, dude, I saw a video here recently, excuse me, that CNN is like, they're laying people off, like their top personalities or top, like, big money earners. They're laying these people off and getting rid of them because there's nobody watching, right? Like, there was a congressman on, or it was a senator, and one of the talking heads was getting on to him, and he goes, look, he's like, nobody has to believe your lies anymore. And the guy says, look, he's like, Senator, we're CNN. It's like, we are the news. And the guy's like, he goes, no, you're not. Nobody's watching this anymore. He's like, there's more people watching SpongeBob SquarePants reruns than are watching you right now. And that anchor's face was just like, he got all, I was like, yeah. So, I'm just only picking on CNN, but that you can't lie anymore. Not like that, and God hates a liar. I mean, that's all through the Bible, dude. Like, that's, do not bear false witness, right? That's, how many times does that say that in the Bible? Do not bear false witness. It's like, don't just be making, I don't want to curse, man, but like, yeah, I'm already, dude, how we're 13 minutes into this, and I'm already like, I'm just, yeah, like, I want to curse. I need a button. I can just beep beep. I can, like, oh my gosh. Anyway, take it away, man. Take it away. What are your thoughts, man?
He's like, please stop. Let me stop. No, I seen something though. Here's a different take. Just talking about all the people that just post random stuff, and I get it. Maybe they just don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And there's one person, she posted, she was so mad. She was mad at the way that it was being handled, and government wasn't stepping in. She's like, we're even taking the people out of prison, and we're using them in the fires. And I was thinking, now you may not have seen this either, so I'm not hating on anybody that doesn't know, but I've watched the series Fire Country recently, which is about California firefighters, and it's a normal thing. They use prisoners all the time, and it actually takes time off their to do that. I think every day they work, it takes a day off their sentence. And then if they have, they can get awarded for being a hero, like doing heroic things, and that takes even more time off their sentence. And it's actually a real thing. It's a show, but it's also a real thing. But they go out there and they cut the line. They do stuff like that. They're not going out there with water hoses, but they were saying, oh, they just gave them like hand tools. But that's normal though. That's how that normally works. But people, disinformation, probably she heard that from somebody, and then she posts it, and then it makes it look more I don't know, I guess California being more neglectful or whatever. And I don't doubt that it was mismanaged. I've heard even Trump and others talk about that. I think he said something, and at least I've heard some politicians talk about that. I'm sure there was some mismanagement, and I don't know if the governor took that. I don't know. Their governor is interesting anyway, but yeah. There's one thing though that comes to mind. We had floods also in North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Too long ago, out in West North Carolina. So there was the rains came and it flooded everywhere. There were landslides. Lots of people lost their life there, and their homes as well. And it just come to me, or as I was thinking about us talking and thinking about those two things in particular. A lot of times when you hear those types of events, especially the catastrophic type stuff, people start thinking about end times, and what are the signs of the end times, and they start digging into scripture and things like that. But I just think, look, here's one verse I was going over recently. It's in First Thessalonians chapter 4:13. It says, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, concerning those who are asleep, so that you will not grieve like the rest who have no hope." Now, I think definitely, look, in times, I think that's important stuff to learn about. And I think sometimes, though, it's like everything else, it gets, it probably gets over exhausted at certain periods of our history. Like certain authors and speakers, they want to come out. John Hagee, I think, is one that will come out, the blood moons and things like that, or even. And I'm not disputing any of the stuff they're saying, but Jonathan Kahn, he's another one that comes and talks about the harbingers and other things. And I definitely think some of what they say has got some merit in scripture, and maybe I don't get too involved in terms of like all those signs, wonders, and things. Although I know there are going to be some, but I don't take a lot of man's interpretation of that. I just know too that it's could happen like thief in the night, right? This could just happen all of a sudden. I don't know that there's any other. There may not. I don't know that there. I've heard this. I don't know if you've heard different, but I don't think there's any other prophecies that have to be revealed or come true before Jesus comes back. I mean, really, this could happen tonight. It could happen right now or tomorrow. But I think just knowing who we have hope in all of those chaotic situations and who we should lean into. And then as we're here and helping people in situations, a lot of people have had the opportunity to go out in Western North Carolina and serve those people, and same thing out in California. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because I know anytime all these things are going on, all this chaos, rain, fire, hurricanes, earthquakes, yada yada. A lot of times it's a good opportunity to remember. Look, Jesus, God's in control, and there is an end coming. Right? It could be very, very soon,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not really a time either to get everybody up, be in a panic. I guess is where I'm getting to. I think sometimes some people take advantage of the sign or those chaotic situations, and they're there to make money off of it, perhaps, and then others, maybe just helping us to keep our guard up, if you will. But ultimately, though, it's just what do you have your hope in, and if you rest in that, I think we're going either way, right?
Yeah. Well, Proverbs tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, you know,
Right.
and I know for myself that kind of the further I get into this walk of faith, the more I've been able to just kind of just put my trust in God, just like, well, this is in the Lord's hands now, and there is a certain peace that comes with that. I mean, I don't know if we talked about it last time, but I told a friend of mine, it's like, it's the great cop out, dude. It's the great cop out because if something goes right, it's like, hey, look what the Lord did in my life. Look at what God blessed me with. And if something goes wrong, it's like, well, I guess God didn't want that for me, you know. So, or I don't get my way. It's like, well, I guess that's not what God wanted for me. So, you know, in a way, you could kind of. But again, as Paul says, and you know, I love coming back to that. Count it all joy, you know, because even in your hardships, you're getting tested because it's going to build your resilience. It's going to build your tolerance and your character, and it kind of those hardships. And it's so easy to say here from behind the screen that I still have a house and it hadn't been burnt down or flooded out, right?
Yeah.
But there are people who, I mean, I've talked to at least one person that lived in Asheville and his house is gone, and he was like, he was upset, but he was a Christian, and he was like, I have faith in God, and I'm like, one of my friends has had one of the craziest lives ever, and she was like, do you think that from knowing me and what I've been through, I have a right to be resentful and angry? And I was like, absolutely. She goes, but am I? And I was like, nope, not at all. She's like, I choose to remember all the good stuff, and all the bad stuff, it gets buried. You know, it's like I'm not going to live my life with all kind of resentment and anger and stuff. And I'm like, that's fantastic. You know, so a lot of these people that have a strong faith, something like that happens, and yeah, they were understandably upset, but they lean on that, and you go back and check on them a couple months later, a couple years later, and they're thriving again. You know, and so that's kind of a
Yeah.
it's a blueprint, right? And for this year, that's kind of the thing for myself. I didn't set a resolution, but for this year, one of the things I'm going to do is work on building that trust further and that reliance further, and just making sure that I give all glory to God, because that's has to be step one, right? Otherwise, what are we doing? You know,
Yeah.
like really, what are we doing? But yeah, the Revelation says there's going to be all these things going on, and wars and rumors of wars, and all the false teachers, right? And you think we got a bunch of false teachers running around saying crazy stuff, man? I mean, but we were in Bible study a couple weeks ago talking about this, and a lot of the guys are like, man, I don't know, but it just kind of feels like this could be the time. And I was like, I get you, dude, and I'm there with you, brother. I feel the same way. However, they felt that way while Jesus was still walking the earth. The first century Christians felt that way. So, I mean, everybody's felt that way because there's always been wars. There's always been something going on, But I'm glad to see that the pendulum has kind of swung back the other way to some kind of balancing of the scales. That's the nicest way to say it. To
So I
where
can't
some of
remember
this.
Sorry, I didn't. Sorry,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
I didn't remember if last time did we ask each other or talk about or pre-trib or post-trib, mid-trib, all that stuff.
We touched on it, but we didn't get into it. So,
Yeah.
I'm kind of new to all that stuff, right? So, as I understand it, your pre-trib people are like, now I'm checking out, right? Like when the rapture happens, I'm checking out. I'm not going to be around. And then your mid-tribs are the people who's like, okay, they're going to check out mid-trib, and then post-trib is going to check out afterwards or whatever, And I'm like, well, honestly, man, I don't know the arguments, right? Or I'm not educated enough in each one of those positions to take a stand on either one, except to say that if like Jesus is supposed to descend from the heavens and the church is supposed to rise and meet him, and then we all come down together, right? That's what it says, right? Am I right about that? Well, if that's what it says, that's probably what's going to happen. Because one thing that we do know, right? One thing I do have trust in now is that I trust that God keeps his promises, And if God made the promise and that's what was going to happen, that's probably what's going to happen. And so I don't think that altering that or trying to change it or whatever. And again, I'm an uneducated person on this, so just take whatever I'm saying here with a grain of salt. You know?
No, it's tough. It's a tough one, really. I mean, because it's just like there, you can really make cases for either one of them. And I have actually, with the youth, went through all of them, and I've gone through that list before, and I had it written out. Of course, I don't have it all in this guy right in this head right here, but it's interesting because there's good cases for a few of the arguments, and so anyway, I was just curious because that's when people start thinking about those kinds of things too. But like Jesus said, or not Jesus, but Paul, he wrote another letter to the Thessalonians. He wrote letters to them about this stuff because it was kind of like one of those situations where people were sort of hyping it up and saying, "Oh, Jesus is already back," this kind of thing, and creating urgency around it, all this. But he wrote to them and he said, "Now concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered to him, we ask you, brothers and sisters, not to be easily upset or troubled either by a prophet or by a message or by a letter, supposedly from us, alleging that the day of the Lord has come. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will come unless that day will not come." Now, this is what this says here, so that's kind of interesting. Here's one of the things that it says has to happen for sure. But this day will not come unless the apostasy comes first and the man of lawlessness is revealed. So that's one of those verses too that kind of gets you to, I think maybe the mid-trib possibly, because the man of lawlessness is already there. Some people I think with pre-trib you're going to be gone before any of that happens. So anyway, so yeah, just interesting stuff. But yeah, I'm like you. I probably don't get too caught up into that hype. Again, those gives us opportunities anytime we have chaos and even division in our country, but just the things that's going on is to really use that as a opportunity for prayer and for others,
Oh yeah.
comfort others, and biblical counsel and things like that. Have you noticed? Let's take a little turn here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's do.
You're not on Facebook. Are you on Instagram, or do you look at any of that stuff? Some people don't bother.
I am on Instagram mainly to promote the businesses.
Okay.
And then obviously I'm on YouTube doing this to promote this and to promote my other podcasts. But Facebook, no. I'm going to have to get back on there because in order for me to do certain types of automatic posting, I'm going to need a Facebook account because Facebook wants you to have a Facebook account in order to play nice with Instagram. So
you get double the thing there. You post, I think you can post through Facebook. It might be the other way too, but when I post through Facebook, normally it'll post over to Instagram as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know which ways. I could just do it all. There are apps that you can post to all the social media stuff that you set up, but then it's like, yeah, but this way I just have to set up the one Facebook thing, and I'll like just go incognito and only push the. I'm only going to have it just so I can do auto posting on Instagram. For the
sorry.
Go ahead. No,
we were like right beside each other. It was easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like ending and starting. Tell you, online people is tough. It's tough. Like I have issues in Zoom calls or Teams calls, and I've been doing it for years. And it's hard not to talk over each other. So I apologize. I'm not trying to.
Oh, it's no worries.
Seen some posts recently. Can I read a couple posts that I've seen?
Yeah.
I just want to get your reaction, and I think others might.
Okay.
Have
Hold on.
reaction.
I'm gonna put my face up here so we can get a unbiased reaction. Yeah.
Get cray up in here. Now I think a lot of this. I'm just saying. Now I think a lot of these are probably in reaction to post inauguration or President Trump coming in, signing executive orders, And so we'll get into a little bit of the specific though and talk about it. I think it's an interesting conversation. Um, but some of the posts though, let's talk about a couple of these.
Hit
I
it.
seen one post. I think one post that actually has Captain America in there, and Hulk before he turns into the Hulk, right?
Right.
And it says Captain America saying apparently, "Don't be that Christian that pushes people away from God." And the Hulk says, or I don't know if this is really, but don't be that Christian that leads them all the way to hell. Now let's talk about that one real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna say it one more time. Don't be that Christian that pushes people away from God.
Mm-hmm.
And then some other person might say, another perspective would be, don't be that Christian that loves them all the way to hell.
That's interesting. Um, that's interesting because look, I don't know. Did you see the Wes Huff and Carlson or Carlton, one of those two?
Yeah, yeah, I know you're talking.
Debate,
Yes, yeah.
and it really, and Wes was just so nice, and he was being very respectful, but he just through his because he is a biblical scholar, and he's Greek and Hebrew and all this, he just dismantled Billy's whole argument about the thing, and Billy was that dude who he would say he's a Christian and he would say he's not a Christian. So he would be that guy that's pushing people away from God. Because if you're following him, you're not going towards God. You're going towards something else.
Really claimed
it's
to
not
know
God.
all that stuff, though, right? He claimed
So
to
what
be.
else?
Billy
He
did
said,
know a lot of stuff, but he didn't.
well, he said he was an expert, like a world's foremost expert on ancient text, right? Not biblical stuff and not the stuff that they have, but like other stuff that is um, uh, just not part of the biblical canon per se, but it's like on the peripheral. He mentions the Sinai Bible, which they're like, look, there is, there's a book, or it's a document that they have that was around, but and Wes was like, no, the crucifixion was in that one, and he was like, and really, it kind of says everything that the scriptures say. So it's like that doesn't help your case because it refutes your case. And then he brought up the Gospel of Barnabas, and he was like, well, okay, the Gospel of Barnabas is a known forgery, which was written in the 17th century, not the first, second, or third. So, just kind of took all the argument away from him. But people like Billy who would say that they have, there's a word for that. They used to call it, that there was called Gnostics, right? It meant knowledge. And so the agnostics are the ones who have like they were saying, oh, we have this secret knowledge. And it's like, do you really? Because I was watching something at some point, I forget what it was. And it said that, oh, it was something about the Freemasons. I don't know exactly what it was, some documentary or something about the Freemasons. And rule number one of the Freemasons is that you lie, right? It's like you don't tell people the truth, right? You obscure everything. And it goes, but the Bible says I am, the light, the truth, the way, and the life, right? Yeah. So whereas the Bible says this is the truth, and then a lot of other sources of knowledge per se are saying, don't tell anybody this. You can't tell people this. This is a secret, and then the Bible's like, it's not a secret. This is the truth, So whereas Jesus reveals the truth, or the Bible reveals the truth, even before Jesus, that stuff was out there. But these secret societies are like, no, you can't tell anybody this. You know what I mean? And in Freemasons, like, there's the part of their ritual is like, if you got to swear that if you tell somebody this, that you're going to get your throat cut. And then some of them have, and they've been found dead with their throat slit, So just saying.
It's crazy.
So
Billy ended up suing his friend, saying you can't. Well, and originally it was him and his friend who had the podcast episode lined up, and I think Wesley was just brought in at the last minute. But even though that was more or less supposed to be their episode, Billy was like, "You better not watch this episode." And I think he ended up, apparently from the story that I heard anyway, put a what would call it, some sort of court order or whatever he did that would prevent his friend saying that he could sue him. I guess basically if he posted that episode. Of course, the episode got out anyway, and I'm not sure how that happened. But
Well, so Wes, they cleared it all up. Basically, what happened was, so Billy and the other dude, I think his name was Mark, and they live in the same neighborhood. They've been friends forever. So Mark was going to he was just going to have a discussion. It wasn't going to be a debate. They were just going to go kind of back and forth. And then he was like, "Wait a second, I really don't know much about this at all." So he had heard of Wes Huff. He'd seen some of his stuff. He knew that Wes was a Bible scholar, and so he calls Wes 24 hours beforehand and says, "Hey, man, would you want to just kind of be the other side of this argument here, or the other side of this debate?" It's like, and it wasn't really meant to be a debate per se. It was just meant to be a presentation of Billy says, this is what I think and know, and then Wes is going to come back and say, okay, well, actually, the scriptures or the documents that we have say this, right? And so it wasn't meant to be like a tit for tat debate. And Mark was like, I'm out of my depth on this, so he called Wes in, and since Billy is friends with him, Billy called him and asked him, it was like, hey, would you don't do that, like don't post that. And he's like, and the guy says, okay, I don't know, like, whatever, man. I don't really know why. I get it, whatever. He's like, because they were friends. He wasn't trying to slam Billy at all. And neither was Wes. But so he sat on it for like a month. And then Wes says, okay, look, I'm going to just put my own video up because people are asking me, like, hey, we heard about this. So he goes, I'm just going to tell people that we did film the debate, as it were, right? It's like, I'm going to put that on my channel just so my people know that, hey, I did the thing, right? And I don't have it, and it's not up to me whether it gets released. So the pressure then on Mark, everybody was pressuring him to release it. And so then he told Billy, he's like, man, I'm going to have to release this dude, And I think Billy agreed at first. And then he came back later that night and knocked on the guy's door at like 2 a.m. and was like, tell him not to do it. And then left him a cease and desist order that Billy himself had handwritten. So it wasn't really a cease and desist order. And then the lawsuit against Wes Huff is like, good luck suing a Canadian citizen. It's like, as an American, I don't know how that works. It's like, I don't know how he's going to be able to file a case like that. But Billy's got the money. I mean, he has enough money to just file a suit. I'm sure he'll find a lawyer that will do it, but he doesn't really have any standing for it. And he could have just bowed out gracefully, but then he didn't. He could have just said, hey, you know what? I wasn't really prepared for that, and maybe I can learn something from that, and I'll come back next time. But he didn't. He then went on to make another response video where he just doubled down, and he said it was a deep fake. He was like, that wasn't even me, that was deep fake. So he's just making all this stuff up. So my point is, circling back all around, is that following somebody like Billy, is leading you away from the Lord. It doesn't lead you to Jesus because he's not talking about the Bible. And then he comes back and says that he's not a Christian. He has a very he's like got a hate on for God. Like, how can I follow a God that promotes genocide, that does this and that, whatever? And it's like, dude, I think he's angry, and I don't know what he's angry about, but whatever. Yeah. Hopefully God can help him. But that's kind of the whole story about that in a nutshell.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting story. People have seen that. Check that out on YouTube. That going back to that quote real quick, it was one thing I think who posted this. They meant a little something different. I think it was I don't know. I'm gonna say this a non-Christian, but just the tone and in it, I would say probably pushing the let's say the topic that way. But again, that quote said, "Don't be that Christian that pushes people away from God." And I think what they were probably talking about there too is just the whole thing with the LGBTQ and all of that stuff, and just we love those people, and if we say, "Oh, you guys are sinners," then we're not loving them. That's not being loving. That's not being merciful and things like that. The other part of that quote, remember, was don't be that Christian that loves them all the way to hell. And so, in other words, like let's not be that person who just overlooks it and never acknowledges it and never uses the scripture as a tool that it's meant to be, in terms of being righteous and righteousness and understanding how to walk in the footsteps of Jesus and knowing what salvation's all about and what it looks like to follow Christ. And so, let's not be that Christian that just overlooks it to the point where we never have a conversation. And because we're allowed to have our own opinion, or really to talk about what God's word says and be honest about that, and give people truth. So there's another one. Speaking of LGBTQ, so we're probably going to get banned after this one. Sorry.
Hey, look, if I get, have you already been kicked off for Facebook for making posts, man?
Something, yeah, I did once or
Have
twice.
you been in Facebook jail, right? I mean, yeah. I don't know if I haven't. I don't think I was ever in Facebook jail because I never made any posts like that that would get me put in Facebook jail. But some of my YouTube videos, not that they got flagged, but I got not a strike, but I got a warning on one, and I was like, I don't even know what it was. For the life of me, I don't even know what it was because they don't tell you, right? And I don't know what we were talking about. Like, I very rarely, I curse so much less than I used to back when we were hanging out back in the day, dude. I had such a foul mouth. But sometimes something will I'm still a person, right? Imperfect. And I'll get upset and I'm like, and I'll let something slip out. It might not actually be a swear word, but it might be something that could be considered inappropriate. And so now, I just go and I cut the volume on that, and I'm like, I might say, "Oh, that's a bunch of bull," and then the audio is not there.
Check out, was it Tim Hawkins? You know him, the Christian. All right, you gotta look it up. Write it down so you remember Tim Hawkins, who is a Christian comedian, but he talks about Christian cuss words. It's hilarious. Oh my God. You'll appreciate that just because of what you're talking about.
I'm gonna type it into. I'm gonna type it into the YouTube search bar right now.
It's a good one, man. It's a real good one. Yeah. All right, here's that other one. I don't think we're gonna get in trouble for it, but just another post that I saw. It says, "Don't worry, as long as you aren't LGBTQ or Black or Hispanic or Jewish or Muslim or Arab or Asian or atheist or disabled or female or poor, you're going to be fine." All right. Now, look. And again, this is what I tell you. I think we're on the cusp again in social media. Things are just going to get a little crazy. Kind of like in 2020. I remember I could not get on social media at all unless I see 30 people talk about mask or government conspiracy or division of whites and blacks and stuff because of all the rioting and things that were going on. George Floyd, that happened. Death was in 2020. And so there was a lot that year. And again, I think we're with the things that Trump has come up with. We'll talk a little bit more specifically in a minute. But yeah, it's like, I think we're on the cusp of that again, because I see like every time I get on there, and it could just like we're within the first couple weeks of the inauguration, and I guess that's sort of like expected, right? Because I'm sure Trump supporters were the same way, after Biden was in there, and after he was in there a while. We post stuff like that too, right? So this is not me being overly righteous. I don't, just because I like to stay in the political sphere in terms of posting on Facebook, giving my political opinions, because I don't think, well, first of all, I don't really think people care what I think, and I'm honestly not really gonna set myself up either for someone to back me or feel like I have to defend myself. I'm just not going to put myself in that situation because I'd rather like exhort Jesus or encourage somebody or use it for that. I mean, and sometimes I look at things and it makes me laugh, and so I get a little bit of entertainment value, honestly, with some of those posts, but I don't hardly ever. I mean, it's rare. I think I respond to posts similar to that maybe twice a year, and usually I'll be honest with you. Usually, the only time I do respond, it's in defense for a Christian that I see as the weak Christian. And what I mean by that, it's just one that doesn't know the Bible as well, and people are jumping on their case, and they're trying to throw all these things out there that sound right or sound if you don't know the Bible very well. And what I would hate to see is someone in social media land deter somebody from loving God or believing in Scripture just because they think they know something about it, and they really don't. They don't really know anything about it. So, and
Yeah.
I do. I'm not super knowledgeable, but knowledgeable enough to know, you know, heresy and other things when I hear it. And so I feel like it, in a sense, I feel like that's my duty to some degree to go in there and
Well,
protect
yeah.
people like
Yeah, it
that.
absolutely is. Because I think you're right. I think the more knowledgeable that we become as, men of God, or, the closer, is the longer we're on the path and the more we learn and the more we can help others. We're kind of
Mhm.
tasked to do so, to the best of our ability, right, guys? I mean, you're not a Bible scholar, I'm not a Bible scholar, but you are a pastor, and you have served as a pastor, you have served as a youth minister, you have ministered to people, right? So
Right.
this is not uncommon for you to have these conversations. It's not uncommon for you, right? And you have received some kind of training for this. Me, I'm that just weird dude that's just running around with a Bible. It's just like I sit here somewhere, like I'm still that guy. Like I'm like still like level one, But but at least I've got the right source material, and I don't know where. See, I'm still the guy that's like, man, I don't know where it's in there, but it's in there where it says, the Bible is good for teaching and correction, and so, and we're supposed to, um, you know, iron sharpens iron. We're supposed to take each other to task sometimes. If you know better than I do, and this is what the letters are for. This is what basically all the New Testament, well, not the New Testament, but all these letters to the churches was Paul doing just that, was going back and correcting them on the doctrine,
Yeah.
correcting them on the interpretation. Like, whoa, wait a second, like there's certain things where, I take marriage, for example. We talked about that a little bit last time. It was like, okay, what's the church doctrine on marriage? It's like, well, it really depends on who you ask, because Paul said, look, it's better. Paul was like, look, it may be better for you just to be single, so that way you can dedicate your life to God. He's like, but if you have to have a woman, this is better for you to be married. Get married so that you have an outlet for this, and so I mean, that was his prescription. It wasn't like an apostle, an ap. I can't even say the word.
Or apostle. What
you
do you?
know, it wasn't something that was a dictate from the church. It wasn't a commandment from Jesus. I don't think it was in the Ten Commandments. I mean, in the Old Testament, there were laws. So you kind of had the Hebrew law that governed how people were to behave with each other, with other people in the community, as a husband and wife. And so they had all this stuff back then, you know, because you don't think they dealt with that kind of stuff back then. Here's the thing that I've learned, right? One of the biggest lessons I've learned so far is that we haven't changed, right? Like human beings, we haven't really changed all that much, right? The same stuff they were talking about and dealing with it back then, and drama, and somebody's doing this, and somebody's spreading lies, and somebody's doing this, or um, uh, talking smack about me behind my back, right? Or making up lies. That's why they said don't bear false witness. That's why they said you have to have two, right? Yeah. If you can't talk to them, then go with two or three so you have witnesses. And if that's not enough, take it to the church. And if they still don't correct themselves, then you have to treat them, not kick them out of the church, but you have to treat them as an outsider, because they don't want to be a part of the brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? And this is the way that I deal with people on social media. It's like, okay, I will do my best to provide what I can, but there is a limit. Again, it's in there somewhere. Don't throw your pearls before the swine. You know, lest
Yeah.
they trample them under their feet and then turn and devour you. Right? The people forget about that part. They're like, oh, don't throw the pearls in front of. Why not? It's like because they will turn around and eat you. You know, that was the other part that I think people miss, and we see that happening. Like the left right now, they're going after their own. You know, like they're having all the infighting now that they didn't have before because they had all the machinery in place and blah 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 and whatever. Come at me, I don't care. Right? I don't care because I was the left. Like I was there for the longest time, and then what happened is the left just took off. They just they took off running further to the left, and I just stayed right where I was, and they drug the conservative right to me. And so now I'm like, well, I guess I'm Christian conservatives are my friends now because that's who's standing next to me. I didn't go anywhere. We just share the same values. I don't know what happened, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I
Right.
mean, I do know what happened. The left just took off and they drove towards the cliff, you know, as fast as they could, and I stayed in the same spot. So, I mean, there's a lot of common sense that is found in the pages of the Bible, and you don't have to look that far. You know, I mean, really, you don't have to look that far. You can start in Genesis and find some stuff, but you'll find something throughout, like Psalms, for example.
Yeah.
I didn't want to read Psalms. I did, but I didn't want to. I'm like, man, it's going to be slow and boring. It's just going to be a bunch of stuff in here. It's just the songs. I don't really care. I thought it was going to be uninteresting. Man, it was not uninteresting. It was very interesting. There's history in there. There's lessons in there. There's poetry in there. These things are beautifully crafted pieces, you know, and it took me reading it and digesting it to get to look at it and go, man, this is really good stuff here. There's all kinds of good lessons in here. But again, you just have to look. You just have to be willing to learn. And if somebody's willing to learn, I'll sit there and talk to them all day. But if they're not
Yeah.
even that, I'll be like, God bless you, brother. Like, I don't know what else I can do but just lay a blessing on you, and then I got to get about my way, you know?
That's right. That's right. So let's talk about a couple of the executive orders, if you don't mind. We can.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw a couple out. We're not gonna cover all of them. There was quite a few of them, right? Um, so one of them, you know, he definitely signed quite a few executive orders related to the border. All right, so border control, different things. One of them in particular, which I thought was interesting, and this is the one I guess I'm a little more afraid of, and maybe not for me per se, but like for him, his family, government, so forth and so on, where he designated certain international cartels and organizations such as MS-13 as foreign terrorist organizations and announced plans to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to target them. And so, if anybody watched any gangster movies and know how the cartel works and how far reach their power or influence is, I guess I'm a little concerned over that, just for the fact of safety for president and family, others in that neighborhood. I don't mess with the MS-13. I hear that crazy.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that does, but look, I don't know any entity or organization on planet Earth that really wants to have the full might and weight of the U.S. Uh, military or paramilitary arm and full weight of the government coming down on them. And that includes cartels. I mean, yeah, they're powerful, but they're not more powerful than the U.S. military. So, right. And at some point, like, not that we have to fight all the world's battles and be the world police. I don't believe in that either. But who's going to stand in the gap? You know, who's going to be the men? You know, the few that stand in the gap. Somebody's got to do it. Mexico's not doing it. The Central America's not doing it. I mean, who was it? I guess Nicaragua. It was Nicaragua, I think, that went after, or Honduras. One of them. They were like, they built the largest prison on planet Earth. Have you seen that? And they just basically, they were like, we built this for MS-13. And so anybody that was MS-13, you're just in prison, you know. And guess what? Now it's one of the safest places on planet Earth. Why? Because they took all the bad guys off the street and put them in jail, you know. So since mankind has been around, we have had good people and bad people, and we got, you got bad men doing bad things, and they're not supposed to be out in society, you know. So you put them in jail. You know, I don't think we should do like targeted assassinations or stuff like that. But it's like, look, if one of my friends here
are concerned about how vigilant our government's going to be, not just with the cartels per se. Probably a lot of people are happy about that more so, I would think. But I think a lot of people are afraid that our government is going to be unfair to illegals. And I think somebody posted this. I thought it was funny. It's just one of those funny things I see. I don't remember word for word, but one guy, he posted, "How does everybody overlooking the word illegal?" Like when in their conversations about all of this stuff, because I think a lot of the targeting is targeting at all. It's the illegal, especially I think the ones. It looks like he's made more of an emphasis probably on the illegals that are also criminals already or have criminal history and are in our country probably committing other crimes. But I think are criminals as they come into the country. So anyway. And why, I don't know, sort of common sense to me, why wouldn't we be concerned with that? Why would we be like the left or whomever be vigilant to protect that? Because it's, I guess, politically correct or
that's their voting block. That's why they wanted them, because that's going to be their voting block.
Yeah, true that.
You know, I mean, and that's not even a conspiracy theory. They were like, why else would California say you don't have to have an ID to vote, right? What you need an ID to drive, you need an ID to buy beer or cigarettes, you need an ID to get into a gentleman's club. You know what I'm saying? You have to be well, not now. You don't have to be a citizen, I guess, to fight for us. You can just be like, but you know what I'm saying? So like, if I'm going to be required to have an ID to drive and to get a gun and to buy cigarettes or vapes or illegal marijuana stuff that you can get now, or go into a gentleman's club for that kind of entertainment. If I need an ID for that, then why don't we need an ID to vote? That doesn't make any sense, right? Doesn't make any sense at all. And so when Gavin Newsom was like, "Oh, we're not going to require you to," and they made it illegal for you to ask, like, if you were a vote, what do you call those people? The volunteers who were at the voting places.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
There's a word for it. It just escapes me. But anyway, somebody was interviewing one of those people, and they were like, "So did you ask for ID?" And he was like, "No, I didn't ask for ID." He's like, "It was illegal for me to ask for ID, but then here in North Carolina, they're like, 'Got your ID?' And I was like, 'Yes, I do.'" So
I never
I'm like,
all of that, and then throwing out there too. I think a few years ago, I heard people say, "Well, it's racist." Like, how's that racist if we're asking ID? I just think, like, can somebody throw that same logic out if you check your ID for alcohol?
Yeah.
That's racist. I mean, come on. I don't know. It's just,
dude, have you ever gone and checked into a hotel? They need your ID. Like, "Hey, I'm checking in for the night. Hey, we need your ID." You're a racist. You want my ID? I'm gonna stay.
Well, let me mention these two. There's this book right here. Is This the End? It's an older book by Dr. David Jeremiah. Let me read just two quick excerpts, and this is kind of related.
Go ahead.
He's got this chapter that's called "The Bleeding of Our Borders." So he's talking about border stuff. This is way back. I don't know. This book might have been written back in 2018, or let's see, or even further back, 2016, right? So a while back, he says God charged the people of Israel to care for the strangers and sojourners who came among them, invoking their national history to induce empathy. And he says in Exodus 23:9, it says this. I got one more passage to read on top of this, though. It says in Exodus 23:9, you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. But then he goes on to say, I like your glasses, by the way.
It's because the light is like right in my face, man. It's like, I tried to hold off as long as I could, man. It's like it's literally one arm length away, and it's just like blasting me right in the face.
Nice. But he goes on to say, he says, God commanded acceptance of foreigners who were willing to adopt his laws. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments.
Hmm.
You shall not commit any of these abominations, either any of your own nation or any stranger who dwells among you. So I think that's a good point, and kind of goes back to the point of just following laws and things of that nature. I got somebody behind me sneaking. You got coffee?
Yeah, I got some.
That's my daughter. I'll see.
Hey,
My daughter. Hello, daughter.
which one is that?
That's Michaela, and she brought me a picture. That's
Oh,
very
sweet.
beautiful.
Hey, guess what? You're on that. That's
You're
gonna
on the
live
podcast.
forever.
That's why. Okay. She's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going. Goodbye.
No, now it's gonna be immortal. It's gonna live on the internet forever.
um, let me throw one more out there, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
I mean, another executive order, right? And I think this is the one that's really got everybody kind of executive orders targeting the DEI and transgender Americans. So it said he established Monday that it is a policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female, in an official document. And it goes on and on. I won't read all the details, but I think that
Right.
gets a lot of people upset. And I know for a lot of people, there's probably some relief because we've always known there's two genders, it's male and female, and I think there's others probably too that their category of gender is more expansive and unseemingly not ending or there's no end to it.
Yeah, it's just it's a spectrum, you know. And look, man, there are people who have both sex organs, but the amount of people on planet Earth that have those is just such a. I mean, it's immeasurably small compared to what we got 6 billion people on planet Earth. So it's a minority any way you slice it.
Well,
The
that's
thing
usually
is,
one of the arguments that comes up. Well, then why does God allow those few people? But I think to the point a lot of like let's say
God.
Christians or whatever would make, that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about a person who decides to make themselves something different, not a biological or some sort of physical type of thing. One thing that people got to realize, and we all got to realize, that when sin entered the world, it not only scarred humans but also scarred the physical world too. Because we got to remember that what was one of the punishments for the sin, and that was the difficulties of the land and things of that nature.
Yeah, and everything dies. Everything dies. You know, that was part of it too. It's like not only do humans die, the trees die, the animals die, you know, the insects die, the mushrooms, like everything that is alive is going to die. And that was the other part of it. So look, for human beings, you need a male and a female to reproduce and create another human being. Until we start cloning babies like they do in the Matrix or that movie Oblivion, you know, or whatever, until there's and we can clone stuff now. So until that's a way that people reproduce, or the government decides to make a bunch of clones in order to have drone people in order to keep the machinery going. But there were movies made about that too, right? So, but that's not the natural order of things, you know. If we're Christians and we look at the Bible as not only a source of truth and wisdom, but it provides a prescription for the natural order. And the natural order is that you have the male and the female, and they come together, and that's how you get another human being. And many, not all species, obviously, but in many species, you have a male and a female. I mean, even fish, there's a male and a female. Even snakes and reptiles, male and female. You know, something like earthworms or some other deep sea creatures or whatever reproduce asexually. But, you know, even plants, there's a male and a female, right? There's something that gives pollen and something that receives pollen. So, and you cross pollinate. So trying to just argue against the natural biological or order of things just doesn't make much sense to me on its face, you know. And to say, well, not everything does it. Yeah, sure, but like humans do. Like so far, the only birth that we know of that did not require a male was Jesus, you know. So other than that, I don't know anybody born on planet Earth that is not a result of a male and a female getting together, you know, until the test tube babies come, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know when that's coming, but the people who are like, well, why would God allow that? It's like, look, every creature, all knees will bow, right? That's what it says. All knees will bow. So that means everything that draws breath has the chance to bow, you know, to bow down to Jesus and be like, that proclaim this is the Lord of everything. This is Lord of the universe, right? So it doesn't matter what you are still given the opportunity. And this is like, you know, you said before, oh, don't be the Christian that pushes people away from God, but also don't be the Christian that loves them all the way to hell. It's like, okay, well, fine. But the best I can do is say, hey, I think maybe I want to talk to you about this. I want to talk to you about Jesus. I want to talk to you about this thing. Well, why would God do this or why would God do that? It's like, look, man, I don't know, but I know that everybody suffers. It's like, I suffered, you suffered, this person may suffer, that person may suffer, you know, and I certainly am not going to sit here and act like I have the answers. I don't. Yeah. But I can tell you that one, again, Proverbs tells us that, you know, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And it just has to start there. And dude, that phrase to me, man, when I read it here, and I just read it like last week, I was like, oh, that's so, it's kind of like a chef kiss to me now, because before, dude, 10 years ago, if you said, oh man, you know what? Beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, I'd have been like, man, shut up. You know, like go pick up a science book or something like that. But where did all that stuff come from? You know where all those things came from? All the branches of science and all the branches of individual areas, disciplines of study, they all came from the early church biblical scholars who thought in themselves, they were like, you know what? I love God. This is God's creation. I want to learn about it. And so they started to observe the natural world. It's like Darwin was a Christian. You know, he wasn't necessarily trying to disprove what the Bible said, but he was like, he started studying. He was like, oh, and he had, he had his own Christian views, and he even wrote something. I forgot. Like the people who were more skilled with the brain holding this stuff will know. But he even said something in one of his writings is like, "Here's my theory, but it's so weak, or not so weak, but it's only held together by this one thing. And if this comes along and puts a hole in my theory right there, the whole thing falls apart." You know what I mean? But then who's to say that wasn't beautifully designed by God, any of it, you know?
I didn't realize that he was a Christian, Darwin.
Yeah. Oh, most of these people were. A lot of the early scientists, or people who started these other branches of, disciplines and areas of study, they did it as an offshoot of their Christian beliefs. They're going, well, God created everything. It fascinates me, because a lot of people, they had interest in plants and in the sciences and in music and in literature and art. And so all the sciences were originally offshoots of these guys who were doing these deep dives of study on the thing. And the guiding principle was their Christian principles. Look, Harvard is a Christian school. Yale is a Christian school. Like the first colleges in the United States were founded by huge donations from the church and wealthy benefactors who were members of the church. You know what I mean? Like how many of these, Duke University, again, same thing, right? I don't know what the denomination is there, but like you can look at all these universities, and this is stuff that you would learn in seminary. This is stuff that you would learn if you're doing that stuff. I mean, again, I'm not. I'm just a dude out here on the YouTubes, right? And I'm fascinated by this stuff, and so I'm wanting to do my self study. But again, at the same time, like I know. Here's the thing. I know that I'm stupid. So I know that I don't know things. And so if somebody can come along and teach me something, I welcome that correction because now I get to learn something, And if I say something that's wrong and somebody comes back later and say, hey man, actually that was absolutely backwards what you said. I was like, okay, well, can you prove it to me? And they're like, yeah, I'll prove it to you. Like go here, here, and here, and read this book or do this. And here's it's like, okay, are these like credible sources? And if I find it to be credible sources, and I'll come back and be like, yo, I stand corrected. But and I'll thank that person. Like, thanks for correcting me. Because again, like me and you, we're here talking. This is going to go up on YouTube. It's going to exist forever. I don't want to come across as if I know everything. Obviously, I don't. Obviously, you don't. We're not saying that. But what we are saying is like, okay, this is the best that we got right now. The more educated we become, the better we'll be able to present information in the future. And therefore we can disciple and minister to people more effectively. You know what I'm saying? Because like I'm in my 50s. You're in your 50s, right? We're both.
I will be 50 this year. This is my
Okay.
year, man.
So we're like not young men anymore, right? So we're entering that elder statesman era, and getting into our Clooney years, right? the salt and pepper.
Right, man.
But you know what I'm saying, man? I mean, like we got, you have the knowledge and experience because you've been in it way longer than I have. So I'm playing catch up, but it doesn't mean that, look, somebody can hit me with something and I'll just be like, yo, I don't know, I'll start by looking it up in the Bible, see what I can find out. I'll go to other sources, but it's like, you just got to go back to the fear of the Lord as the beginning of wisdom,
No doubt.
What do you think? What you think? What you think about that?
I just think my final thought on all of what we talked about today. Look, man, we kind of like. I guess the theme for me, it just for my opinion, today was just like getting beyond the hype and just rest in what God says and being careful, like just being careful. Like even when we're talking about the LGBTQ or any of those things that are really are hot topics, hot button things. I'm very careful how I typically talk about those things. And usually I don't even talk about them out in social media land, anyways, or even on places like this, because I mean, I don't know. It's a hard conversation. It's one of those conversations I'd rather have one on one.
Yeah, me too.
You can get pretty deep into that, and we don't always have the opportunity to explain everything that we really want to explain or defend our thoughts and justify the things that we say. We don't have hours and hours to do that. We probably could, but we just don't have. But I'll leave in my from my perspective, I'll just leave one verse that I think really helps to sum up kind of like what's our call to action here on all of this stuff, right? and or something at least to remember. So if we look at Proverbs chapter 16, verse 28, it says, "A contrary person spreads conflict, and a gossip separates close friends." And so I would just leave that with people, man. Like, let's look, to some degree, let's be careful about maybe how we communicate some of these ideas and there's some of these conversations with others. But at the same time, let's not be afraid to have those conversations with others, because I think it's important. I think it's important to, especially like those quotes that I was reading or those posts that I was reading earlier. That's just one view, and that's usually leaning one way or the other. Those kinds of posts, and usually not coming from a Christian point of view or Christian worldview. But it's up to us. It's up to me. It's up to you and others that are listening here to really put those views out there and see where they land. Sometimes they create a good conversation, but again, I think we just be wise in how we approach those conversations. And most of the time, in my experience anyway, if I'm kind of careful and thoughtful but still truthful in the matter, usually those conversations end up well. At least they end with I agree to disagree kind of situation, not like chaotic and us going back and forth, me taking stabs, they taking stabs at me, that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that I avoid, because the Bible tells us really to avoid those arguments and about all things really, whether it's philosophies or whether it's fables or whether it's just you know um, prophecies, all these different things. That really we avoid those things, um, and speak truth to others. And so yeah, we gotta love, and so we're called to love people. And I think a lot of the left leaning, let's say, religious folk, especially similar to the, I think she was a bishop who spoke, um, had some words to say to Trump. I don't know, you probably seen that too. And if you didn't, just check it out. But she had some words about being merciful and being graceful and all these things. But at the same time, we got to remember, like, okay, is this person standing with others that are in sin? We got to recognize the sin. It's not to say that we hate anybody. I don't hate anyone. Honestly, I do not. I do not hate anyone. But at the same time, I got to recognize that even in my own life, if it's sin, I can't stand with it, right? Even if it's something
Right.
on my own, I can't stand
Yeah.
in it. I have to acknowledge it. And what am I called to do? To repent and turn away from it. So in a sense, that's kind of the same call to action that we might have to others, because it's scriptural. And it's not that we're trying to beat them up, but again, I think sometimes maybe that's the way it comes off. So I would just say be careful. People listening, just how we approach them, because we want to be loving, and I think that's usually when we build a bridge strong enough where maybe they will listen to what you got to say.
Yeah, I totally agree, man.
Finally
Totally
got
agree.
my
Yep. I can't, I love that coffee mug, man. um, that's about as good a place to leave it as any, my brother. So we'll wrap it up here with that. And thanks everybody for just checking in with us and listening to what myself and Brother Ween have to say. Do check out the other episodes. Look, if you're having fun with this stuff, then my call to action for the viewers out there is to, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your mama, tell your enemies, bring them too. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Rogue Disciple Podcast. Peace.